What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Imagine being under daily missile barrages, begging for air defense systems that your allies once promised, and then finding out that the one country capable of shielding your skies just, pulled the plug. Not because you did something wrong, but, because they're suddenly worried about their own stockpiles being a little too empty. Welcome to Ukraine's latest nightmare, courtesy of the United States Pentagon, now playing the role of selective supplier in a war zone. By the way, guys, under no circumstances I personally think that the US owes Ukraine to anything. The country did already way more than anyone could have ever asked, but just halting the shipment of the most requested items, such as air defense, in times when Russian attacks are the fiercest, is just very bad timing to go through political games and ego comparisons, to say the least. America's defense machine decides to pause shipments of Patriot systems, Hellfire, GMLRS, and even the humble Howitzer rounds. And what's the reason? America first. Stockpiles are low, as if Ukrainian civilians being torn to ash is a scheduled inconvenience. So today, guys, let's dissect how this cold decision was made, who's applauding it, who's panicking, and how it gives the Kremlin one more reason to toast with champagne while escalating significantly. Because they simply can. They, now, have a window of opportunity, and Putin surely, and unfortunately, not going to miss it. Let's start with the lovely euphemism, pause. Not a cancellation, not a betrayal, just a gentle, thoughtful pause while Ukraine gets air freight, literally. According to Pentagon officials and their representative Elbridge Colby, this decision is part of a strategic review to preserve US readiness. In case of what? Canada invades Detroit, Mexico takes Texas, or Cuba finally launches nukes at Miami. I don't know. The irony is sharper than a missile warhead. Ukraine is currently experiencing its biggest wave of Russian aerial assaults in years, hundreds of drones and missiles raining down on cities, sometimes daily, hundreds. And what's the response from Washington? Just pull the plug on the very air defense systems that have been saving lives. Patriot systems once again, GMLRS rockets, Hellfire missiles, and precision munition that have been crucial for stopping Putin's wet dreams of conquest. Well, now all of them suddenly locked in the US warehouses like antique silverware. The explanation is laced with buzzwords about readiness and defense priorities. What's the translation? We're nervous about our toys running out, and Ukraine just became its lower priority. The unfortunate timing of this decision is just mind-blowing. This is not a lull in the war. This is not a moment where Ukraine can take a breather and think about reconstruction. No. This is a time of escalating Russian aggression, where swarms of drones and precision missiles are slicing through airspace like locusts through crops. And just when Ukraine looks to the west for reassurance, that's it, the rug gets pulled. It's the geopolitical version of your older brother not lending you $500, like the one money that potentially can change a lot of things for you, because he's saving to buy a house at some point in the future. Don't know when, but at some point. Maybe even never. Let's see, maybe I'll just continue renting, but no, $500, I'm not gonna give it to you. Even more devastating for Ukraine is the subtle shift in language. Officials are not saying we are cutting Ukraine off. They are saying we need to evaluate, adapt, and preserve. It is corporate lingo draped over a body count. It is that hated bureaucratic way of saying, we're very sorry to hear you go through these experience difficulties. We are working really hard to solve the issue as soon as possible, and we will get back to you as soon as we have an update. I'm sure, guys, you heard this thousands of times, from everywhere. The problem is the update never comes, and if you stop asking, they stop caring about you. These are not widgets or software updates, these are weapons that stop incoming death. And the people depending on them are not theoretical models in some war room or mathematical calculations in some Pentagon spreadsheet. These are real people. They are mothers, grandfathers, volunteers, medics, kids, everyone. What Colby and the Pentagon are really saying is, we'll get back to you. Hope you survive the wait, and then we will see. Let's talk about the potential reasons for this suspension, guys, in our next chapter. Of course, none of this happens in a vacuum. This is politics, and in politics, truth is optional. The decision is not just a Pentagon mood swing, it is also a theater for Congress and the voters back home. Trump's team claims the halt aligns with his goals of ending the war, believe it or not. As if cutting off life-saving weapons to a bleeding ally is some grand pacifist move. Meanwhile, lawmakers like Brian Fitzpatrick and Marcy Kaptur are sounding the alarm, calling the move unacceptable and deadly. Because let's face it, you do not stop a war by letting one side run out of bullets. Apparently, Trump's administration sees this as a potential way out when all the previous conventional methods and peace talks failed. Military expert Walter Dorn even calls Trump's behavior despicable with regards to Russia-Ukrainian war. Just let the bully win and hope he stops harassing people, the kind of approach here is. The problem is that it doesn't really work that way. You let bully do his thing and he feels untouchable, he feels there is no consequences for his actions, and then becomes even worse over time. The Congressional Ukraine Caucus is already demanding answers. Ukraine's military officials are scrambling to understand the sudden shift, calling the halt painful and warning that it will only embolden Putin, nobody else. But let's not pretend this is something new. It is literally deja vu all over again. Back in 2019, for example, the very first Trump administration played a very similar game, withholding $214 million in aid just to twist Ukraine's arm politically. Legal scholar said it broke the law back then. What about now? Same song, just different verse. If Colby's policy review is the basis for freezing congressionally appropriated funds without a new budget message, we are looking at another legal mess. But legalities aside, the real crime is the signal this sends to Russia. Putin will 100% take advantage of this hopefully temporary misfortune. He will try to push as hard as possible to force Ukraine into surrender. And when and if the support resumes, it might be unfortunately a little bit too late. And don't underestimate the domestic showmanship either. Trump is juggling foreign policy like it is a reality TV show, TV finale even. Dramatic pauses, last-minute reveals, strategic leaks. You can almost hear the applauses from his base as he paints himself as the tough guy who will not let America get played while quietly letting Ukraine burn in the background. Add in the fact that this entire mess unfolded after a high-profile handshake between Trump and Zelensky at the NATO summit. And what you got is a masterclass in public relations treachery. Appear friendly, delay the weapons, and later just say, guys, I tried. Classic politics. The only person benefiting from all this is obviously Putin. Let's unfortunately talk about him in our next chapter. Besides Putin, who else do you think celebrates this pose with a smug grin? Dmitry Peskov, among others Kremlin inhabitants. The Kremlin's propaganda machine wasted no time spinning this into a golden PR moment. Fewer arms to Ukraine, that means we're one step closer to completing the goals of this special military operation. If that line does not make your blood boil, well, it should. While Zelensky is shaking hands with NATO leaders and begging for Patriots like their literal oxygen tanks, the US is practically handing Putin an opportunity to escalate, and he will. Kyiv was hit with 60 missiles and nearly 500 drones just this past weekend alone, think about it. So you think Russia is going to see this aid freeze as a reason to negotiate? No, they will see it as a window to push even harder. But here's what makes this sting even worse. These were not hypothetical promises. Some of the delayed systems were already en route, already in the region even, just sitting in storage somewhere in Poland, waiting for the green lights that never came. That's not caution, that's sabotage disguised as logistics. And let's be real, Putin does not need even more motivation. Now he's got American hesitation as a huge morale boost, even to the soldiers as well, to the Russian soldiers. The message this sends to the Kremlin is crystal clear. If you outlast your enemies' allies, you win. And right now that bet is unfortunately paying off. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military is trying to hold the line with depleted supplies, rotating tired units and dodging Iranian-made drones that explode on impact. European allies are doing their best to fill the gaps, but they simply do not have the same production capacity. Ukraine is not asking for miracles. Only the thing they are asking for is just consistency. Just please give us a chance to defend ourselves. You don't run a marathon with someone who promises to run beside you and constantly cheer you up, just for that person to give up after 10 miles and say, you are on your own, bro. I got soccer practice tomorrow. I need to chill. I need to rest. So see you and good luck. Hopefully you can finish the marathon by yourself. Let's talk about the elephant in the situation room. The idea that America is running out of missiles. According to experts like Sid Hart Kaushal and Tom Caraco, this narrative is more spin than fact. Yes, demand has risen, but no, the US is not in dire straits. Patriot missile production has increased, new contracts are rolling in, and stockpile replenishment is well underway. In fact, some of the Patriots being delayed were diverted from other export partners, not pulled from the Pentagon's own vault. Even Congress was told that deliveries to places like Japan were used to prop up the numbers. The claim that we are running dangerously low is a convenient just excuse, a shield for an administration that does not want to keep bleeding resources into a war that has lost its domestic popularity. And even if stockpiles were low, the right question is not are we running out, but what are we saving them for? If the goal is to maintain US superiority against theoretical adversities down the road, as if somebody is there to attack America. What happens when an actual war is happening right now, and the cost of delay is measured in civilian lives? The production capabilities are there, increases are already underway. This is not about inability, it's about unwillingness. And it's not just the big-ticket Patriots. We're talking about, once again, GMLRS, Howitzer shells and Stinger missiles, the backbone of Ukrainian defense. Holding them back now sends a very unambiguous message to Putin and everyone else sitting inside the Kremlin walls, that the US calculates its moral responsibility on a sliding scale of domestic polling numbers. When the war is popular, America is there to help its allies. But once nobody cares anymore, so does neither cares its administration and leadership. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below, for example, my Patreon, where you can see these episodes in early access, in addition to bonus chapter at the end of each episode. Once again, the link is down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe